Do you dream of writing a novel? When you feel the urgency to write a novel, you aren't making it up. When that urgency won't let go, there's a reason. Turn your readers into raving fans. Reveal the power of your voice and your story. Writing is an act of courage, and you have what it takes. How to Write a Novel That Sells by Lana McAra will take you across the finish line. Visit howtowriteanovelthatsells.net and take that powerful next step now.
Welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where you will discover tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Here you'll find new energy, new perspectives, new resources, and new ideas that will spark your creativity into a blaze of brilliance. It's easier than you think. Be sure you visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, get out your notebook, tune in, and let's get started.
Have you thought about doing an audiobook for your fiction novel? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to the Fiction Writers Podcast. Tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Today, I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast Ruby Peru. A sloppy workaholic and independent operator, Ruby Peru drives a beat-up pickup truck and restores old houses. Named a 2021 Indie Author to Watch by Kirkus Reviews, Peru previously won the 1999 Bronx, New York Writers Award for Fiction. She has also co-authored Untamed Justice, Business Cards and Shoe Leather, and Money Isn't Everything, Everything is Money. In addition to her novels, she ghostwrites memoirs and thought leadership books for clients from all walks of life. She's an author, ghostwriter, and narrator. Ruby Peru's Bits of String, Too Small to Save, love that title, is a witty, classically illustrated fantasy for adults that asks, what's the difference between animals and people? Between magic and technology? Between a true home and a place to live? In 2021, Bits of String, Too Small to Save was a New York City Big Book Award distinguished favorite. And the long-awaited release of the audio format of the book won the 2022 Deanna Tulley Multimedia Prize. Welcome, Ruby.
Hi, thanks.
I'm excited to talk to you today because one of my books is in audio, but I have been thinking about putting a couple of others into audio. And so you came into my radar at a very perfect time.
Oh, cool.
So let's talk about Bits of String for a moment here. So how does the theme of home appear in Bits of String, and why? Why did you choose that theme?
Well, that's an interesting thing for me that I explore in practically everything that I write, because the way I grew up, I moved a lot, and so I never since I didn't never really realize that I was the only kid doing this, that I would move to places where other kids had been there their whole lives, and eventually I realized, oh, most people actually don't do that. Most people have a place that they call home. And when people say, where are you from? I usually just pick a location that I think that person will think is exotic. That is also true. That is one of the places that I lived. And I say that, So for me, the way I dealt with it was not fitting in was kind of my brand. Like at first as a kid, it's hard to not fit in, and eventually realize, okay, I'm never going to fit in. How can I make lemonade out of this lemon? So whenever people say like, oh, you don't seem like you're around from around here, my answer is always, I'm not. I'm never from around anywhere that I live. And that's my thing. I bring you something new. Maybe it's useful to you. Maybe you can learn from me while I learn from you, So that's kind of my experience of life. And so it naturally just occurs in everything that I write. And then at a certain point, when people are older, people talk about putting somebody in a home, right? Which is a totally different concept of home, because usually they don't want to go, and it's not really home, it's a home. So in Bits of String, Too Small to Save, we have a badass grandma named Grandma, who's a car mechanic and a hot rod driver. And she doesn't fit into this sort of post-apocalyptic technology dystopia where she lives. And people are finally sick of her and they say, we're going to put you in a home, which is basically relegating you to not being part of society anymore. And so she and her granddaughter go through a portal into another world, which is a totally different type of post-apocalyptic dystopia. And this is their only chance to make a home. So they have to save this world from itself. It's suffering from diseases. It's suffering from a technology problem. It's suffering from a magic problem. It's suffering from talking animals that are really neurotic. It's suffering from all these things. And they have to figure out the core of the problem to save this world in order to make a home for themselves there. It's their last chance. Did that answer the question?
Wow, she sounds like my kind of gal.
Well, you know, she's based on a real person. She's based on, I had this landlady. Her name's Diana Woods. If you're out there listening, Diana, this is for you. And I sort of based it on her because she was just like a badass grandma. And it was a combination between her and this other person I knew who was really into cars. And I was like, I'm going to put these two people together into one character. And then I thought, this is a grandma everybody would love to have.
She reminds me of a landlord I had one time who always showed up in yoga clothing. She had yoga suit on. And she came in one day and she said, I don't go to yoga. It's so boring. But if I put the suit on in the morning, I feel like I've been at yoga.
It's all a head game.
But whenever something needed fixing, she's the one out there digging at the mailbox and putting stuff in the ground and fixing things and all that, and I think she was close to 80 years old.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. I understand what you mean about no home because that was my experience too. Not as a child, but as a married woman, married adult. So what elements did you add to this Bits of String story to make it stand out from other adventure type stories?
Well, yeah, when I first started writing it, I wanted to do something really classic because I love classic type of illustrated, like not, when I say illustrated, people often think I'm talking about graphic novels, which I'm not. It's like, I read a lot as a child. So I had like an old copy of like Treasure Island. It has just a few beautiful illustrations in it. An old 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I had an old 1001 Arabian Nights, Alice in Wonderland, all those like classic hardback books that you can get that just have a few illustrations. And usually it's pen and ink done in a cross-hatching style. And I love that style. So I wanted to write a book in that style. But I am a new fashioned person, not an old fashioned person. So as I was writing it, real elements of my life started coming into it. And the rule that I set for myself as I was writing it was I have to be having fun. Because I know one thing, if you're not having fun, your readers won't be having fun. So as soon as I would get bored, I'd be like, well, change it up. Throw in a talking monkey. Throw in some, like I'll often bring in characters that are just people that I met in my regular life that are just completely absurd, especially if somebody was bothering me that day. I'd be like, you are going in the novel. That's what's going to happen to you, and usually I'd take real people and combine them into one new character, and it would just be some kind of really wacky character and throw it in. So it deals with, for instance, I had been a kindergarten teacher, Montessori teacher, actually. And after I left, and I used to tell my students stories every day off the top of my head, which was a great creative exercise for me. And they loved it. And I would also like bring them into the stories and stuff like that. And when I left that job and had a different job, I didn't want to lose my chops. So that's when I started writing this book to keep my storytelling chops alive. But at the same time, I experienced all these things in my real life. I had a boyfriend that I realized that sort of really manipulated me. And so that started coming into the book. And I was having to deal with technology like you do, and there's ups and downs to that. And so all of those elements of modern life started coming into the book. And the plot line was no longer just an old-fashioned story. It became a story about a kind of post-apocalyptic type of dystopia where there's old-fashioned stuff and there's new-fashioned stuff and there's technology that has gotten so good that it doesn't even work anymore. And there's a social structure that used to make sense but doesn't make sense anymore with the technology that you have. And then you start questioning, really, when you think about it, I mean, technology is instantaneous. You don't know how it works. You just give somebody the Zoom link, they stick it in, and there they are, right? So it's magic. It is pretty much the same thing. Some people know how it works, but that's the same thing with magic. You have magicians or sorcerers or people who actually do know how it works. So really, how is it different? And so that's sort of something that I started to ponder. And that's all in there.
That is so good. I'm so glad you brought that out, because I believe that a lot of new writers, they have the idea that successful novelists, we just have all these ideas packed into our brain, and we sit at the keyboard and they just fly out, when actually we're collectors.
I'm a storage locker. Yeah, no, it's like constant input, constant output, constant input, constant output. Yeah. But the way it comes out will not in any way resemble the way it came in, except inside of my mind, because I know how I interpreted it. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you can cherry pick and put two together and morph it and all these things. But the input comes from somewhere.
Yeah. Right. Well, the world is filled with interesting people and interesting things. But they're a lot more interesting if you run it through the filter of your life and your viewpoint. Like, I could tell this entire story without the emphasis on home and finding a home. But running it through that filter is what makes it my story.
Sure. That's what makes a strong story, when you have that running theme and it touches the heart. I don't know of any word besides maybe family that would have more emotional pull than the word home. Universal.
Yeah. And I mean, for a lot of people, there's a lot of like writers groups out there where people are like, oh, talk about what home means to you. What was it like being around your kitchen table or in your community? And I'm always looking at this going, home means to me nothing. Home means to me something different constantly. It's not the same as, like, a lot of people are like, home is this particular meal being cooked around this particular kitchen table. And I'm like, oh, and that's nice for you. That must be nice. For me, home is a constant search. There's anxiety. There's a constant desire to fit in. It's work. It's work to make a home. To me, home is like a constant quest. It's an activity, not a thing or a place.
Isn't it interesting that you restore historic homes?
Yes. Now that you know what? I never made that connection before.
It just occurred to me as you.
I don't restore them though. I do what I call a faux restoration. Usually they're terrible houses that I get for free that were never really nice houses to begin with. But I try to make it look like, oh, I removed this wall and look, this brick wall was behind it. In reality, I built that brick wall to make it look as if it was actually a beautiful old home. In reality, it was a junky old home. And I'm making it look older than it actually was.
Wow.
Creating a sense of history that never actually existed.
Wow, that is cool. That's kind of wabi-sabi type of approach, where you love the broken and the old and the tarnished.
So much. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much character in that.
Yeah.
Well, have you written a story about that kind of thing at this point?
About restoring houses? You mean like literally about restoring?
About making an old house look more, like sexy. You're making it more sexy than it was.
I talk about it constantly, but I don't think I've ever actually written about it. I don't have anything. It's a very good question. Now I'm going to have to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's what I do when I'm done writing. So I don't write about it because it's like my break from writing. And sometimes I'll be writing something and I'll be frustrated and I don't know how to say what I want to say. So then I just go work with some wood, build a thing, do something physically tangible, actual that I can touch and see the results of. And then the brain is like gestating all that information. And then somewhere in the middle of this, I'll be like, oh, I know what I wanted to say. I know how I wanted to phrase that. And then I'll give it up and I'll go back to the computer.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was raising children, while I was writing my 27 books during that period of time, whenever I would get to that point, I would suddenly get on a cleaning binge and I would be scrubbing in the bathroom and my kids would be like, what's going on? Mom's cleaning. That's special.
Oh, I'm writing.
It just looks like I'm cleaning. It's all going in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this funding model, crowd pricing everywhere. How does that work?
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting. So the way it works is I publish through this publisher called Scribble, and they're the ones who do this. And so people who get the book off of Scribble, which currently it's free to get, and it will always be free to get, as a matter of fact, you can get it free on the Scribble website. That's spells Scribble correctly without the E at the end. And soon it will be out as a podcast, which will also be free. So anyway, if you get it on the Scribble website, then you leave a review on Scribble. And when people, let's say it starts out at like $1.99, right? And so then if people go, oh, this is a really great book for $1.99, what's the review? 5 stars. Okay, great. Then they'll raise the price to $2.99. And then people still go, oh yeah, still great, 5-star book at $2.99. And more people keep buying it and they keep raising the price. If it gets up to $9.99 and then I start getting 4-star reviews, then they go, well, we want to lower the price down to where you're always getting 5-star reviews. So the price is completely based on the reviews, the quality people feel that they're getting for the price. So the price is determined by the readers themselves.
I have never heard of that.
Isn't that cool?
Is it free to put your book up there?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's only ebooks and
they do audiobooks. They don't do paperbacks.
Okay, so it's electronic books and audio. Interesting. Wow, I'm going to have to check into that. Well, everyone, there's a new resource for you. It's Scribble, SCRIBB.com or SCR.
SCRIBL.
Okay.
.com.
SCRIBL.com.
If you just type in either Bits of String Too Small to Save or just my name, Ruby Peru, then you'll find you have to, they make it a little bit confusing. You have to sign up for an account, which is free, in order to download things and then the free things or things that cost however much they cost, and then leave a review. And they'll always encourage you to leave a review so that it keeps the whole system working.
Right, right. Okay. Do you get royalties from the sales?
Scribble sends everything out to Audible. It sends everything out to Amazon. Sends everything out to Nook and all the e-readers and everything. So it's just like publishing on Amazon. When you publish through there, it goes out to everything, and then whatever royalties you get from them come to you. Yeah, and it's actually it's like over 80%. It's really good.
Okay. Well, what a great resource to get yourself out there, with the first book, to get your name out there. So then people start looking you up, in other places. That's terrific. Never heard of it before. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
Yeah, sure. It's a really interesting. I mean, I'm just starting working with them, so I haven't used them before, but so far they're really helpful. And I think like on a writer to writer basis, I would recommend giving them a try.
Okay. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about why you made an audiobook 3 years later after the book came out.
Question. Here's why. Okay. So this book, when I wrote this book, I was not being like commercial. I wasn't like, I'm going to write this book for this type of reader in this type of category. And as a writer, I'm sure you know, you have to know your audience. You have to know, is this YA? Is this middle grade? Is this adult? Is it new adult? Is it young adult? Is it older adult? Is it this or that? You have to know what category you're writing for if you really want to market it. And I knew nothing about that. And I also kind of didn't want to know anything about it because it was just a pure creative expression of mine. And I just wanted to say what I had to say. And the result of doing that is it's very hard to market a book when it falls in between genres like that. I wanted it to look like an old-fashioned storybook, but those are usually written for children. But my writing style, I was informed by numerous publishing agents that I talked to, is like way too difficult for children. My sentences are long, my plots are complicated, my vocabulary is high, and I like my style. I was told if you change your writing style and just keep the plot, we can probably publish you. And I was like, what's the point? Like I write because I want to express my style, you know? So I published it as it is, and I got pretty much the same feedback from people. A lot of people like it, but the people who like it are all over the board. I had a 12-year-old who totally dug it. I had adults who totally dug it. I had adults who said it was too hard for them. It's basically like for really gifted children, which is not a genre that you can market to, or for really playful adults. So anyway, an audiobook takes that problem away because you don't have to read it. So you're listening, the whole family can listen together. It's the kind of story where there's levels, where the kids will get certain things and adults will get other things that will go totally over the kids' heads. So it's entertaining for the whole family. And if any of the vocabulary words are like over the kids' heads, if you're listening with your kid, you can explain it, but also you can sort of just figure it out from the context. When you're listening to an audiobook, you sort of just let it wash over you. And everybody picks up on, if you show the same audiobook to 10 different people, they will talk about 10 totally different impressions of it. Because your brain doesn't just like pull in every single word. It kind of just gets the impression, you know? So producing an audiobook solved that problem of being in between genres. And audiobooks don't have to be marketed to such specific genres the way written books do. Sorry for the long answer to the short question.
Yes, you don't have the reading levels in the audio. People can understand more hearing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When you produced it, when you produced it, did you use various people to play the roles, or did you?
There is a huge cast. First of all, I had this wonderful narrator who's going to do it instead of me because I didn't trust myself. She ended up getting cancer in the middle of the thing. It was terrible. And so she had to drop out, and I had to go back all the way to the beginning. And I was like, I guess I'm going to narrate it, which I should have done from the beginning. Everybody wants to hear the author narrate their own thing. So it's narrated by me. And then I do a whole bunch of voices, and I do like maybe 3 of the major voices. And then I have like 5 or 6 other actors who come in and do, mostly I told them, I just need your voice to be unique. If you have a particular accent you can do it. If you just want to talk and be yourself, do it however you want. 2 of the actors are children because there's a little girl, Elizabeth Ann, who's the main character. She and Grandma are the main characters. And children are very busy people. So the first child had to drop out after the first half, and actually replaced her with a different child who doesn't sound that different. And so Elizabeth Ann is played by 2 different little girls, and they were brilliant. The children were so easy to work with. And the adults are just like a wide variety of different people. They're all just friends of mine, basically, who volunteered to do it. And they all sound really different. And some of them do, like, especially the monkey. It's a really regional accent from Rhode Island that this friend of mine knows. He was like, "Can I do it like this?" And I said, "Yeah, as long as you're consistent, it sounds great." So it's fun to listen to because of all the different voices.
Did they come together or did they read their parts individually and then
Oh no, they did it separately. Yeah, I had a studio that was actually loaned to me by a radio station. They have a studio for making podcasts and whatever audiobooks or whatever you want to do, and they let people use it. So they would come in and then they would just have their lines, and I'd coach them through their lines to make sure it was inflected right and they understood what the background of the situation was. And all those would be brought in separately, and then the sound engineer put them together with sound effects and background music and everything like that.
Okay, so you had a sound engineer to kind of produce the final thing. That is so interesting because I've never, I know that people use actors for their books, but I didn't know how that actually works.
Well, what the conventional way of doing it is to hire an actor, an audio actor. There's bunches of websites where you can hire audio actors, send them the script, and then they do it. Usually people hire them for doing stuff like commercials or something like that. But you know, you can hire them for whatever. But it can get really pricey if you want as many actors as I wanted, and if you want them to actually read the script and understand it, so that because there are conversations. There's just a lot of dialogue in the book, and there are conversations, and a lot of them are kind of rapid fire. So it has to be said the right way. You know how if you say a sentence, like if you don't understand the context of the sentence, it just won't make sense if you don't inflect it correctly. So most of it is me coaching the actors in the studio. That's what I had to do. I, of course, had to make a simple thing complicated, because what most people do when they do audiobooks is they just like do it all themselves, keep it simple, you know, speak the book into the microphone and have done with it. But I wanted it to be kind of like an over-the-top production.
Right. Well, it's exciting adventure. I mean, that adds a lot to it when you have different voices and personalities and all that, because I saw an audiobook recently that Tom Hanks had read into audio, and he didn't even use any different voices. He just read it.
Yeah, and you think if you're Tom Hanks, you know, put a little more into it than that.
Yeah. Some voice actors, they actually do change their voice too.
Yeah, and that's what we did. Like for some of my actors did a few different voices, and I did a lot of voices. I definitely developed like the ability to do, I'd be like, oh my God, another like tiny little part that I have to do. This character only has 5 lines, but it has to sound different from all the other characters. So I'd be like, what if I plug my nose? What if this character has a lisp? What if this character has a stutter? What if I tuck out the side of my mouth? What if I do it like this? I like change my body posture. What if I do it like this? What if I do it like this? You know, like try all these different ways to try to get a different voice out of myself, so it didn't sound like the same person doing the same voice.
It's a shame you didn't get a video of that.
I know.
It would have made a great behind the scenes, reels for.
That's true.
Yeah. But it's such a good idea, though, to change your voice by changing your body. That's
you come up with different, and a lot of them are like imitations of people from TV. Like one of the characters is Mrs. Howell from Gilligan's Island. Bad imitations, so nobody will know that that's what it is, but that's what I'm thinking of as I'm trying to do it. You know, and another one is a bad imitation of Fran Drescher. You know, so I'd be like, okay, this one's gonna be there's a character from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I was like, oh, that's the dog because he's kind of dumb, you know. I would like go online and be like, okay, what character should I imitate for this, person? And so that's part of what I would do too.
So interesting. Well, I can tell you're a very highly creative person in many, many ways, not just on the keyboard.
It's a blessing. It's never stopped.
Yeah. What is coming up in the future? What plans do you have?
Oh, well, I'm working on a Southern novel. And it's Well, it has to do with, takes place in Louisiana. And part of what it has to do with is a lot of little known things about Louisiana. For instance, there are a lot of Bigfoot sightings in Louisiana. It's one of the biggest areas. It's like among the sort of second biggest areas for Bigfoot sightings. So I'm bringing in a lot of unusual folklore and history, and also current events that is like sort of little known about this particular part of the South, and trying to bring out the character of that area in this story, which is about, people living their lives like all novels.
Did you live in Louisiana at some point?
My partner's from Louisiana. So I've just been learning a lot about it, and it's really stimulated me to want to write about it.
Okay. I lived in Natchez, right across the river from Louisiana.
Oh, really?
Louisiana, not Louisiana. So that interests me a lot because it's so rich. That area is so rich in culture. Climate is different. It's just got a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. There's for somebody who's, of all the places I've ever lived, I've really never lived like in the deep South like that. So it's yet another place where I can feel like perfectly out of place.
Yes. When we first moved there, we went into this building and this woman came out and she said one sentence and I went, oh gosh, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
It was so heavy. It was so different, and it was a struggle sometimes to even understand because of their enunciation and all this was totally different. And so it does have its challenges. Ruby, this has been awesome. I really enjoyed our conversation. So where can we get more from you?
Well, my website is rubyperu.com. And what my website mostly talks about is my ghostwriting, which is what I do for a living. But you can get this audio. The audiobook will be out probably the first week of December. So perfect for Christmas gifts. And you can buy it anywhere that you buy audiobooks. You should be able to get it as a free podcast as well. And you can always just keep your eye out for Ruby Peru because I'll be coming out with new stuff. And I can't exactly say when this next piece is going to be done, but soonish.
Yes. Bits of string, too small to save. Take a look. And I'm going to go over there and look at it myself because it sounds amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
You. Take care.
And thank you for being with us today. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into the Fiction Writers Podcast with Lana McAra, where we share tips, tricks, and ideas for fiction that is #unputdownable. Remember to visit our website at www.fictionwriterspodcast.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Fiction Writers Podcast.